everyone. Welcome to inspireWord. Joe here. We're actually broadcasting from Cincinnati, Ohio for the first time. We have a really special surprise and guest tonight. As always, as we start every show, we want to first thank Solidarity HealthShare and Catholic Order of Foresters for always supporting the work we do, like bringing information and great conversations like you're going to see today. Our guest today is actually one of the co-founders of Solidarity HealthShare, and we're really excited to have him. Teaming up with me today is we're all going to have a great conversation. This is Joe Higgins, our COO at Catholic Speakers Organization, and then Jason Percival, who works really closely with our organization, sits on our board, and helps run the Cincinnati Men's Conference. So without further ado, we're going to welcome in Mr. Chris Faddis, who is the co-founder of Solidarity HealthShare. Chris, how you doing? Welcome to inspireWord.
Hey guys, good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. We've got, we'll have to get a little bit closer here, guys, so we can spin this. Well, Chris, before we get into your awesome story, can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I can.
Before we get into your really awesome story, we actually have a surprise for you tonight.
Oh.
That we want to see you to see what you've probably seen many a times, the fruits of your labor. We're going to invite some stars in real quick so you can check them out, and then we're going to explain why they're joining. Come on in, guys. See if I can get us all on get the there we go.
Hey guys. Hey. Good to see you all.
Right here. We'll try and
it's
get
like a family reunion.
So
I think I saw you when I was 9 months pregnant with this one.
Yeah, beautiful.
So Chris, everybody in this shot almost. I mean, we can get Jay if you want to stand up. You can see Joe. Is Declan in there?
Yeah.
There we go. So Chris, everybody in this shot, from little Maeve to me, I think I'm the oldest. They're all Solidarity HealthShare members.
That's awesome.
Because of your story and what you created, you've touched our lives, and it's
Wow.
just an amazing thing. And to see it in action, we thought it'd be kind of neat to invite them on.
Oh, that's awesome. I love it. I love the families.
You guys.
What's that?
What did you name? I don't know if I remember. What did you name your youngest?
She's Maeve, Therese, Catherine.
Maeve Therese. Awesome. Beautiful.
So
Gosh, it's great to see.
Yeah, so we got Cecilia Mary Rose, our oldest, and then Declan, Finian, our Spanky, and Maeve.
Awesome. Love it.
So
Yeah.
So good to meet you kids. I see your dad all the time.
yeah.
Awesome to meet you.
Can you all say thank you to Mr. Faddis?
Thank you, Mr. Addy.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you guys for being members. That's sweet. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Thank you guys. All right.
Love it.
They're big talent's a lot of money, so we got to let them out.
Yeah. You don't want to pay. I hear they charge by the 30 seconds.
Yeah. So, Chris, we're
That's
going to try and make this. Let me try and get this. Can you see us all in here?
I think you guys need to do the thing where there's like one of you low, one in the middle, and then
Yeah. Almost like a boy band photo. Well, listen. I'm so glad that you allowed us to do that, because it starts this story off for anybody that doesn't know or is aware, tuning in to know who you are and what you've built. We're with Chris Faddis. Chris is an incredible businessman, but started a business that helps families all over the world, especially in the country, with Catholic HealthShare. Chris, we just want you to just dive into your story of how you had started, what you went through with your wife, and kind of give us an update on where you all are today.
Yeah, I mean, I come from the world you guys live in. Really, initially I was a youth minister for a long time, and kind of off and on would do youth ministry, and I was speaking and traveling, and then I would do some business stuff, and was always dabbling. But really, since I was a kid, I was really into starting things and business and ideas and those things. But the Lord tugged my heart and pulled me towards ministry, and I always kind of wasn't sure what all that meant. So, fast forward, I get married in 2006 to Angela. I was working in a business role at the time, and really thinking, gosh, I need to support my family and those things, but I kept being tugged a different way. And so, long story short, we're married. We have our first child in 2007, our second child in 2009. I'm again back and forth between business and ministry, and basically, really just kind of struggling with that call. And then, I was working in a business role helping develop restaurants in North Carolina. and was really, trying to figure out, I just loved the work. I loved being able to create a concept and do those things. And I was really, for me, it was like I was in my dream job. I was doing what I knew I was called to do, and the Lord would figure out how I would still serve Him as well. So my wife, in 2011 on Easter Sunday, she had been really sick, lots of constipation, lots of stomach issues, and for about 8 or 9 days, and was going back and forth to the doctor. And finally, the last visit to the doctor, I think, towards the end of the week, they said, look, if she's not better by Saturday night, you need to get her to the hospital, and we probably need to, figure out what's going on, or, whatever. We need to kind of get some imaging done or whatever. And so, she kept persisting, no, I'm going to be okay. I think I might feel better, and so Holy Saturday that evening, she said, I bet you I'm going to feel better in the morning. And she was really, really focused on that Easter for some reason. That year, just Lent was really special for her. And, so she just knew we had to have a good Easter. So she wasn't going to the hospital, and she was, really resisting it. And long story short, we went to the, 2 a.m. She wakes me up and says, I'm in just too much pain. I need to go in. So take her to the hospital. We've got 2 little kids in tow. I'm sitting in the ER waiting area with my 2 kids in the middle of the night. She's in back there. I don't know what's going on. She's kind of texting me, what's happening. And at the time, texting, I think we had just gotten our first phone with like a screen.
Yeah.
But it was like, it was like it was like really poor screen. You know what I mean? Didn't look that great. And, she's trying to send me stuff, and long story short, she at one point says, just take the kids home. They're going to do a little bit more testing, but I'll be fine. And I go home with the kids. I barely sit on the couch, get them some breakfast, and I get a text from her saying the doctor wants to talk to you. And I thought, well, yeah, whatever. The doctor wants to talk to me. So we get back in the car. We start loading up. And as I'm getting in the car, I went, wait a minute. Why does the doctor want to talk to me? And I realized at that point this was something serious. And so we started praying. And so the one thing that I think we did right in our family, and really not for our own merit, is because we went through a lot of hard stuff in our first few years of marriage that caused us to rely on prayer, is that we prayed the Divine Mercy Chaplet all the time. And so at the time, my daughter, who was 3, almost 4, she turned 4 a couple days later, knew how to pray it with me. And so we were praying it all the way to the hospital. As we got out of the car and got in the stroller, we finished the Divine Mercy Chaplet. We walked in the hospital. And I, we had, at the time, we were living in North Carolina. We didn't have family. So our kids had never been with sitters, And we walk in, and they had a nurse sitting there who was going to take my kids while I went back to talk to the doctor. And my kids went with her, which was like the first miracle of the whole thing, because they normally wouldn't do that. And I went back, and doctors came in and said, hey, we're pretty sure that this is cancer. She has a large mass in her colon that looks like there's lesions all over her liver and some other spots in her body. And if that's what it is, we're really late here. So we're going to send a surgical team in here to see what they can do. And I was in that moment for me, the only way I can describe it is like glass shattering across the floor. That there was just every hope, every dream, all of that. And really just thinking, I mean, I knew 2 other people in my life who had had stage 4, who had been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and both of them lived 2 months. So in my worldview, in my understanding of cancer, she was going to die soon. And so it was just like everything shattered. And here we are, it's Easter Sunday. We were looking forward to the day. Even leading up to this, she kept saying, I can't wait to get out of the hospital. We're still having Easter dinner. We're still doing these things. And I thought she was going to just crumble. And she looked up at me and she said, well, Jesus still rose, so we're going to trust. And I was like, oh, okay, sure. Yeah, babe, you're right. So that was kind of the beginning of our journey. I don't know how far you want me to go, Joe, but that was the beginning of the journey.
It's a story that everyone needs to hear, because it's not talked about enough, but a lot of, that story is a little bit different, but there's a lot of, new married couples that have miscarriages, and folks don't know how common that actually is. So, the struggles that you had with, this heartbreak and things of that nature, with that kind of experience really helps people. Real quick, Chris, in case this person may need to take off, or hopefully they stay around for the whole show. But we got a question from Jeff Wilson. Wanted to know if Solidarity HealthShare is available for group plans.
Yeah. Hey, Jeff. Yeah, we are. I mean, it's not technically a group plan because we're not insurance, but we do have small groups that are part of Solidarity HealthShare. Typically, they're groups with less than 50 employees. And essentially, you know, the way it works at health sharing, you still have individual members, but we can, you know, the employer can pay on behalf of their membership. So we do work with groups, especially under 50. And we will, you know, we have a team that helps with that. So if you call in and hit option 1, I believe it's Remember Development, they'll, you know, and ask about groups, they'll walk you through it. And honestly, it's actually really great because we have some really great, I mean, in some ways, Joe, you guys are kind of like a group, right? We got a couple employees, you know, working together, but it's really neat because I think then, you know, you start to kind of collect. This whole sharing community really is about not just the patient, the member, but also the providers they work with and all of that. And so we find that our members, you know, working together, they kind of help each other out. Hey, I work with this provider; he's really good with health sharing and those things. So, so we do that, and we're happy to help you with that.
And Chris, quickly comment on the difference between why HealthShare is different than just your average insurance company.
Yeah, you know, so healthcare sharing is basically saying, look, I'm actually not participating in insurance. I forego, or I, you know, whatever. I opt out of insurance as a member, and instead I choose to share my healthcare costs with other people who I align with. So, you know, people like you, Joe, we all share our costs together. So when Maeve was going to be born, right, the members of Solidarity HealthShare, all of our monthly contributions came together. And, you know, maybe I got a notice that said I'm sending, you know, $200 of my contribution is going to this family, the Higgins family, right? So we share each other's costs. And so Solidarity just acts as an in-between to facilitate that sharing. And there's a whole, you know, online structure that's set up for that. And then also helping provide with, you know, different options for providers and you know, really helping advocate for our members and help them find healthcare and, you know, things that align with their values. So that's the difference. We're not, you know, I'm not responsible. I'm not the one that's responsible for the payment as Solidarity HealthShare, but I, as a member, I'm really a self-pay patient, but I'm agreeing to share my costs with other members of the ministry. And it's really incredible. I mean, you look at some of the stories about some of the sharing and some of the ways that the things that have happened. It's really neat to be a part of. You know, and you mentioned, Joe, the miscarriages and the infertility issues and, you know, the cancer cases. You know, one of the benefits of this, and this is going to become more obvious to our members with our new member portal that's coming out, is the ability to pray for one another, that our staff is praying by name for these people as they're going through these things, that, you know, our members are getting a personal card from one of our staff members when they have a miscarriage, and they're getting resources. And, you know, any member who has cancer gets a copy of the book I wrote about Angela's story and you know, just personal prayers, and they're constantly prayed for in our ministry. So it's really just such an awesome experience. And granted, there's plenty more we can do to make it more awesome. And that's what we're excited about, is we're really rolling out some opportunities where members can really interact more, you know, requesting prayers of the whole community and those kind of things. So
that's awesome. Well, you know, I talking about the families, and then myself, I'm just single male, as is Jason, and we both, the experience with Solidarity HealthShare is unbelievable. It's actually super easy. The rates we pay, the premiums we pay on the month are so competitive.
The contributions.
Yeah, like that. I'm helping people understand the contributions are they beat everything in town that I read on the research. So if you're just joining in, we're with Chris Faddis, who's the co-founder of Solidarity HealthShare. He's telling us the story of how the company came to be, as well as many other things. Chris, can you tell us when you knew, what was the moment, you know, obviously this inspirational series of conversations about being inspired and helping people get through these tough times, we'll get to that. But what was the moment that you were switching over or knew that you might have a calling to leave the food service world and move into the insurance world? What was that exact, do you remember that, or was there an exact moment? Or
well, yeah, it was honestly the whole journey. You know, so after that first part of the story, Angela lived another 17 months with her cancer. There was a lot of work to do. You know, we went through chemo, and then we went through a whole series of advanced and alternative treatments, which really helped to knock the cancer back, radiation, and then we went back through chemo rounds and did all of the whole gamut, right, of the cancer journey. And throughout that journey, I would see different parts of the system, different parts of what we dealt with, whether it was the delivery of the care or the insurance side of the world, or you know, the medicine, the pharmaceutical side of the world. And I would constantly think of, it was just, I was constantly thinking, oh, if we could improve that, what if we could just improve that one thing?
Right.
And honestly, even some of the work I've done in the food world was inspired by that journey, seeing a hospital system that was providing really good, nutritious, organic meals to my wife and to the other patients in the hospital, really inspired what we did with the Bene program that we had launched, and other things. So really, I think I was feeling drawn throughout the journey. I didn't know what that meant. We raised over $100,000 for Angela's care. In the right after, a few months after she was diagnosed, we raised the bulk of that to pay for these treatments that weren't going to be covered. And what we saw there was the Christian community, coming around and saying, I'll help with that. I'll put up my $5, or I'll put up my $200 or my $2,000, whatever it was, and people supporting this care. And that was definitely the inspiration for me to say, wow, if we could help come up with a better way, this was way more enjoyable, way more beautiful of an experience than what you normally deal with insurance. And so that, I think, inspired kind of the initial idea. What could we do? Could we help other people raise money and those things? And really towards, it was, in 2012, a year and a half into her journey, we were writing the book about her story, It Is Well. And at the same time, I was praying a novena about the book, leading up to Pentecost Sunday. I was praying a novena about the book. And one of my good friends, Dr. John Ertley, was praying a novena about, they were in the middle of an adoption, and they were praying for that. And we had been talking about these healthcare issues. The HHS mandate had come out. This had been on our minds. And he called me up and he said, gosh, Chris, I know we keep saying there's nothing we can do, but I think we have to do something. And so we spent probably 4 hours between on the phone and on my my front porch that afternoon, really thinking through. And I think I just said, I think health sharing is the only way we could do it. And we started thinking through what that would look like, looking up the laws and the exemptions and all those things. And really, it was that day that became very clear to us that that was what we were supposed to do. And I remember he was at Mass with our bishop the next day, and there was something in the bishop's homily about being called forth on Pentecost Sunday. And he called me right after Mass to quote what he said. I don't even remember what it was, but I remember that being the confirmation for us that this was our call. This is what we were supposed to do. So, that was May 27th, 2012. I searched that date recently. And really, that's what you credit me with this. Ultimately, the Holy Spirit inspired this.
Yeah.
And I'm the donkey of the Holy Spirit, as I think was it Father Patrick Payton said about being the donkey of Our Lady. So we're stumbling all the time, just like the apostles did, but we're just trying to be faithful to that.
Yeah, Chris, that's amazing. Guys, jump in if you have any questions, and I'll be quiet. So if you speak up, I won't say anything. But Chris, can you?
I actually have a question for you guys. Who picked the ugly guy for the middle of the shot? I just need to work on your production skills. Jason, you know better. Come on, man.
Gaslighting. You're trying to give him a handicap.
No, it's Chris. This is just an example of the relationship we've built with you personally, but also for how supportive you have been with everything we've done at CatholicSpeakers.com. Now we represent you as a speaker, which is incredible. Anyone watching wants to bring Chris to their parish conference, please contact us at CatholicSpeakers.com. We'll help set up an arrangement to bring Chris in to speak. He actually spoke and gave a message at the Cincinnati Men's Conference a couple years back, and it was just unbelievable. And that's when we knew we had something special. But Chris, what's out of all the stories that you probably have from after starting, Solidarity, what is one of your most inspirational that might come to mind, like you might be able to share with us really quick, that really touched your heart when you realized, wow, we're really doing something pretty powerful here?
I think there's, it's funny. I don't want to out anyone, but one of the stories I think about is one of your family members when a bunch of us met up for dinner in DC at the March for Life. But I think about a lot of those kind of situations where we have members that don't know what they're going to do about a certain situation, and one of those is fertility. And fertility is a thing that we from the beginning felt like, is there a way that a health share could support life-affirming fertility methods, things like naprotechnology, and even just dealing with the restoration of the woman's body that in so many ways has been destroyed by modern medicine and how we've approached fertility and just health issues. And so there's been some incredible stories along those lines. I mean, people who have suffered with endometriosis and infertility, and through the Solidarity members been able to share in their procedures and and treatments for that have not only been able to deal with the pain and suffering of endometriosis, but also have been able to conceive. And we have incredible partnerships with some of the providers around the country that some of our members even fly to, But I think of two in particular. We had a gentleman who's a member, and he had a few years ago had a vasectomy. And, was, even though the family was Catholic and practicing, but they were kind of misled and led that direction. And then, recently he's been just dealing with some very severe depression. And finally a doctor said, I think it's something with your hormone levels. And they started looking at that. And then they realized, wait a minute, maybe this has something to do with this vasectomy. So Solidarity HealthShare, through the guidance of a bishop who challenged us, we actually will share in the reversal of vasectomy and sterilizations. And he had the reversal, which was great for the family, wanted to get on track with God's will, but also his depression is gone. He literally, all those hormonal issues, all of that, they had to regulate that and do those things. It's gone. He's a totally new person. It's just an incredible story. And that's not us. That's not me. That's the Lord working through this ministry. And it's also being able to enable those ethical providers who are doing the right thing by people, enabling them to do the work they're called to do to restore people to what the Lord would want. It's just an incredible thing. And then I think just another example, I think for me is just, some of these people with cancer that we've been able to engage and encourage. And, I think there's obviously for me, having been through it, there's a special part of me that just feels very much that we're doing the right thing when we're able to serve those people. And, I can't really count how many times there's been just some incredible story around one of our members with cancer. But just recently, a good friend of mine was diagnosed with cancer. And the full circle part of this is that the radiation oncologist that Angela went to when we were doing those advanced and alternative treatments, who ended up not charging us for her care, and who saw her and did a full course of treatment, which really is what kept her alive as long as she stayed alive. That radiation oncologist was the one we ended up referring him to. And, I haven't seen him or talked to him. And his first response was, wow, you guys are doing such great things for the people. If I need to provide free care, let me do that. And of course, we don't need that. The members are sharing the cost of his care.
Right.
But to be able to know now that we're now, it's full circle. The same guy who really kept Angela alive is now serving our members here in the Phoenix area. Is just really a beautiful thing. And those, for me, and just the stories of the members, thanks for bringing the kids out, because I love seeing the kids that are born through this ministry. There's like 300 or 400 women at a time who are in our maternity care that are being care managed by our team. So those are some of the things. I know I wasn't very specific, but it's kind of hard, Joe. I'm always inspired. We just have incredible things happening every day.
Well, you've built something amazing. And we are very excited to have you on again. Chris Faddis is joining us. He is the co-founder of Solidarity HealthShare. You're looking at the Cincinnati Men's Conference team. We're all three members of Solidarity HealthShare. Also, Chris, above and beyond the business of solidarity that you built, you guys get very involved with the Christian community and literally put your money where your mouth is. You guys invest in conferences like we put on and all kinds of different things. So thank you for doing that. Next to you guys are just on sponsoring and helping everything. I see you everywhere. I saw you all over the place, the March for Life in DC this year. And it's just been amazing to see what you did. We do have some friends that joined. I want to say hi to Ellen Salter and Christina Dixon, two other Catholic speaker family members. Thanks, guys, for tuning in.
Awesome to see you. Thank you, guys.
We're coming down to the 30 minutes here, so I would love to close this out. If you could give some professional advice and personal advice as a father to families that are losing jobs and they're losing their health care along with it, what would you say to these people from a spiritual level and whatever you would feel called maybe to? What advice would you give to them to get through this?
It's been on my heart since the beginning of this whole thing. First of all, I think the very first thing is we've got to take, oh gosh, my good friend Katie Reynolds just popped in, and Katie,
hey, Katie.
Gosh, Katie and John Reynolds are the ones who took our kids and took care of them those first few days of cancer, of Angela's treatment, and they're godparents to our son Augustine. So God bless you, Katie. It's such a blessing
God bless
her. So gosh, that almost brought me tears just to see you, Katie. But honestly, I would just say the same words that Angela said. Jesus still rose. We have got to trust. Jesus still rose. We will trust. And I think that's what she, towards the end of her life, one of the things she said when she knew she was absolutely nearing the end of death or nearing death, she said, I just want the world to know that no matter what, they must trust in Jesus. So, if you're losing, so that's spiritual advice, not professional advice, but if you've lost your job, if you're in one of these situations, I want to ask you and encourage you first to trust. If you're worried about COVID, trust. If you're worried about what's happening next, trust. That's the only thing we can do. And then from there, I'd say, you've got to put the word out. I know for me, we're luckily in a situation where we haven't lost our job. We're okay. We're stable. We were able to do things. And one of the things my wife and I always say is we're like, who can we help? And it's hard to know because you're not just going to walk up to somebody and say, hey, Joe, do you need some money? Do you need me to help you? Can I make you a meal? But, I think we've got to let people know when we're looking for work, when we're not sure our job is going to last. We've got to get the word out. I saw a friend recently, and he has a rule. He doesn't hire friends. And I noticed on LinkedIn that a mutual friend works for him now. And he said, look, he needed a job, and I have a role that I could, I'm giving him 3 months to give himself time to find a job. I think there's lots of people out there who want to help where they can. And so I think people have got to let the community know. No one wants to go out and say, hey, can I have $5? But to let people know, hey, I'm looking for work. If there's any way I can, if you know of anything, I need help. I think we've got to rely on our community. We've got to come to our community. We've got to be able to say to our brothers and sisters, hey, I need you. And ultimately, we've got to go back to trusting in the Lord. So Divine Mercy Chaplet, when I was out of work in an interim period there where we really were losing the place we were living and we were basically homeless.
Wow.
Angela and I went to Mass at one point. There was a parish nearby where we were living that had Mass 3 times a day. We were going to Mass twice a day and praying the Divine Mercy Chaplet 3 or 4 times a day. And that is what got us through. That got us from breakfast to lunch to dinner to bedtime. And ultimately the Lord provided. I had to wait. And there were a lot of hopeless days, but it was that Mass, the Divine Mercy Chaplet, those are the things, and the Rosary that got us through that. So I would just encourage people, get out there and let the world know, get somebody else to help you find a job. There's lots of people out there who want to help right now. And I know for one thing, if you're in the Phoenix area or you're open to moving, Solidarity HealthShare is still hiring. So
There you go.
we're blessed to be in that position. We need to support our members. So, come find us, and we're looking for great people who align and want to be a part of the mission.
That's amazing. Again, Chris Faddis, co-founder of Solidarity HealthShare, is joining us tonight. You can book him as a speaker with us at CatholicSpeakers.com. But Chris, where else can people find you? Maybe give the website and then maybe social things you want them to know.
Especially I hang out at SolidarityHealthShare.org and the Solidarity HealthShare Facebook page anymore. I don't really do as much on social as I used to, but definitely there. And I do have the Chris Faddis speaker page. You can always send me a message through Facebook as well. Sometimes it takes me a few days to see the people that I don't know on Facebook, but you can send me a message there as well. So definitely reach out to us at SolidarityHealthShare.org. Visit us on Facebook. I'm launching a series this week, Joe, with Solidarity called Straight Ahead.
Awesome.
Which is a series of interviews with different influencers. This first one that's coming out this Saturday is with President Trump's former senior healthcare advisor,
Oh, wow.
Katie Talento, and then we've got David B. Wright, the founder of 40 Days for Life, and
He's
Mike
amazing.
Parker from Catholic Medical Association. So coming up, we're launching those actually. So if people watch our Facebook page, I think it comes out this Saturday. And then there'll be a live version every week on Facebook Live. So I'd love people to join us there. We're talking both about the faith side of what we do as well as the healthcare transparency side of what we do.
That's awesome. So the focus on that show is going to be on healthcare a little bit?
Yeah, healthcare and then also faith. So we'll kind of intersect the few. So this first one's all about price transparency and dealing with the healthcare. And then I'll have a follow-up Facebook Live with Katie Talento, who's actually an epidemiologist. We'll talk about COVID. We'll talk about the government response, and we'll talk about how people can protect themselves and their dollars during this time. So
awesome. Well, Chris, we'll make sure. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying that was great.
We'll make sure that we post that link to your show on inspireWord.com. So everybody watching this right now, please go to inspireWord.com, just like it sounds, InspireWord. Sign up for our mailing list. We're going to put next to Chris's picture and this conversation, which you'll be able to watch and share it forever with your family and friends, a link to his shows coming up that he's doing, and also a link to Solidarity HealthShare. Chris, we're out of time. I could spend another hour with you, my friend. We can't thank you enough for giving us so much time and coming on InspireWord and sharing your personal story, which is inspirational, as well as your professional story, both of which are unbelievable. And thank you so much for coming on with us.
Thank you, Joe. God bless. Thanks, guys.